The galaxy watched an attack as humanity abandoned the table. But they never expected what returned. 5 years after disappearing, Admiral Harrison's Independence fleet emerged with technology that rendered Council warships helpless, broadcasting across all channels. He revealed 17 thriving colonies beyond reach, turning the tables on those who sought to contain humanity's potential. The crystal lights refracted through the vaulted ceiling of the Galactic Council chambers, casting prismatic patterns across the vast circular floor below. The architecture was designed to inspire awe, with towering columns of polished stellarite and viewing galleries that curved upward into a perfect dome. At the center stood the table, a massive ring of luminescent material that had hosted the galaxy's most powerful species for millennia. Katie Morgan adjusted her formal diplomatic attire, a crisp navy uniform adorned with Earth's planetary insignia. She kept her composure, but her fingers betrayed her anxiety as they drummed silently against her thigh. For 20 years, humanity had held a seat at this table as the youngest members of the Council. 20 years of struggling to be taken seriously. 20 years of proving humans weren't the primitive beings many Council members still considered them to be. Beside her stood Admiral Jack Harrison, his weathered face a mask of calm determination. His silver-streaked hair and the constellation of commendations on his chest spoke of decades navigating both the stars and the treacherous waters of interstellar politics. Unlike Katie's nervous energy, Jack exuded a steady, almost glacial resolve. His eyes, however, missed nothing. They scanned the chamber methodically, noting the positions and expressions of each alien delegate. "They've been deliberating for 3 hours now," Katie whispered. "That can't be good." Jack's expression didn't change. "Patience, Ambassador Morgan. The Council moves at its own pace. I just wish they'd get to the point instead of making us wait like scolded children." The analogy was more apt than Katie wanted to admit. In the vast, ancient community of spacefaring civilizations, humanity was indeed the child, having achieved faster-than-light travel barely half a century ago, while most Council members measured their interstellar histories in millennia. Earth's rapid expansion to 17 colony worlds in that short time had been unprecedented in Council records. What humans considered natural progress, many older species viewed with suspicion. The soft chime that signaled the Council's return to session silenced all murmuring in the chamber. Katie straightened her posture as the 7 High Councilors glided to their positions around the inner circle of the table. Each represented one of the founding species, civilizations so ancient they had shaped the very protocols by which the galaxy was governed. Chancellor Zephyr, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted between azure and violet, took the central position. The Valurian's 4-fingered hands spread wide in the traditional gesture of commencement. Representatives of Earth and her colonies. Zephyr's voice resonated with the peculiar harmonic quality of all Valurians. "We have reviewed your petition for expanded settlement rights in the Orion Spur." Katie felt a surge of hope. The Orion Spur contained dozens of habitable worlds that human surveys had identified as perfect for colonization, untouched by sentient life, and rich in resources humanity desperately needed, as Earth's population continued to strain its rejuvenated, but still limited biosphere. "After careful consideration," Zephyr continued, "the Council has unanimously rejected your petition." The hope in Katie's chest crystallized into a hard knot. Jack remained impassive beside her, but she noticed his hand tighten, almost imperceptibly, on the ceremonial hilt of his officer's baton. "Furthermore," Zephyr's tone grew colder, "the Council has determined that human expansion has proceeded at a pace that threatens the stable harmony of our galactic community." Around the table, the other founding species representatives nodded in solemn agreement. Speaker Sis of the crystalline Lumidians, her faceted body glittering under the chamber lights, spoke next. Humanity has established 17 colonies in merely 50 years. The previous record for a newly admitted species was 4 colonies in their first century of council membership. We advance quickly, Katie responded, unable to keep the edge from her voice. It's in our nature to explore and settle. We've followed every council protocol for non-interference with developing worlds and avoided all territories claimed by established civilizations. Director Krall, the massive, multi-limbed representative of the insectoid Zarvith Collective, made a clicking sound that the translation system rendered as skeptical laughter. Your rate of technological advancement similarly exceeds all safety parameters. 16 major technological leaps in areas of propulsion, energy generation, and material science in just 2 decades of membership. Katie opened her mouth to respond, but Jack placed a gentle hand on her arm. He stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. Counselors, with respect, innovation is not a threat. Humanity has shared all major discoveries with the Council's scientific exchange as required by our membership covenant. The issue is not sharing. Admiral Harrison, Chancellor Zephyr replied. It is pace. Rapid advancement destabilizes the careful balance we have maintained for over 12,000 years. Katie felt the familiar frustration rise within her. The Council's obsession with stability often seemed to translate into stagnation. Humanity had joined the galactic community, expecting to find mentors and partners in the stars. Instead, they had found rigid bureaucracy and entrenched power structures resistant to change. Therefore, Zephyr continued, the Council has enacted Resolution 7291, effective immediately. A holographic document materialized in the air before Katie and Jack. As Katie's eyes scanned the text, her diplomatic training barely contained her shock. The resolution outlined severe restrictions on human activities throughout Council space. 1. Human colonies would be limited to 1 new settlement per decade. 2. Population caps would be imposed on all existing and future colonies. 3. All human research and commercial initiatives would require prior Council approval and ongoing supervision. This is unprecedented, Katie said, her voice barely controlled. No other member species faces such restrictions. No other member species has demonstrated such unchecked growth, Speaker Sis countered. We do not take this action lightly. Ambassador Morgan. Jack studied the document with narrowed eyes. And if we refuse these terms? The chamber fell silent. Chancellor Zephyr's skin darkened to a deep indigo, a sign of grave seriousness among Valyrians. Then, humanity's council membership would be reconsidered. The threat hung in the air like a suspended blade. Expulsion from the council would mean loss of trade routes, technological exchanges, and protection from hostile non-member species that occasionally emerged from unexplored regions. It would leave Earth isolated in a galaxy where isolation meant vulnerability. Or so the Council believed. Katie felt her diplomatic training failing her. Every instinct screamed to protest, to argue, to remind the Council that humanity had rights that predated their membership. She turned to Jack, expecting to see the same anger she felt, but instead found something unexpected in his eyes. A calculating gleam that she had seen only once before, during the Proxima Crisis, when Earth's first colony had faced extinction. Jack stepped forward, his voice steady. The Council's position is clear. Earth requests a recess to consult with our government regarding these terms. Chancellor Zephyr seemed taken aback by the calm response. Granted, the Council will reconvene in 3 standard days to hear Earth's formal response. As the session adjourned, Katie maintained perfect diplomatic composure until they reached the private Earth delegation chambers. Once the doors sealed behind them, she rounded on Jack. We can't possibly accept these terms. They're asking us to halt virtually all progress for centuries. Jack moved to the communication console and input a complex sequence. A soft hum filled the room as security countermeasures activated, blocking any potential surveillance. We won't be accepting anything, he said quietly. Then what? Risk expulsion? Earth isn't ready to stand alone against... We're not going to stand alone, Katie. And we're not going to fight the Council. Jack's eyes held that same unsettling gleam. We're going to leave the table. Katie stared at him. Leave? You mean withdraw from the Council? Not officially. Not yet. Jack activated a holographic display. Complex schematics appeared. Star charts, logistics flows, resource allocations. What I'm about to tell you is classified under the highest Earth Central Authority protocols. Only the President and Joint Chiefs know the full scope. The display zoomed in on a region of space far from established Council territories, behind a dense nebula cluster. Operation Hidden Horizon, Jack said. For the past 5 years, Earth has been preparing contingencies for exactly this scenario. Katie studied the display with growing astonishment. These are colony sites? Beyond Council space? 17 worlds, specifically selected for their strategic position and resource profiles. Invisible to standard Council sensors due to the gravitational distortions from the neutron star cluster. Protected by the cosmic storm belt that surrounds the region. This is why the Deep Space Survey budget kept increasing, Katie realized. You were mapping escape routes. Jack nodded. And establishing supply caches, automated manufacturing outposts, quantum communication relays, everything needed to support rapid settlement. But our existing colonies will appear to comply with the Council's restrictions, at least superficially. Jack expanded the display to show complex logistics pathways. Meanwhile, we'll gradually extract key technologies, scientists, and volunteers. Not an evacuation, but a strategic redeployment. Katie's diplomatic mind raced through the implications. The Council will eventually notice, by which time we'll have established a position of strength beyond their reach. Jack's expression hardened. Earth joined the Council seeking partnership, not patronage. If they won't accept us as equals, we'll build our own future. This is audacious, Katie said slowly, and dangerous. More dangerous than having our potential locked away for millennia? Jack's voice remained level, but intensity burned behind his words. I've watched Council species with technology, centuries ahead of ours, deliberately slow their research to maintain stability. They've turned exploration into a permission-based exercise. That's not humanity's path, Katie. She couldn't argue with that. The restrictions outlined in Resolution 7291 would effectively end humanity's great age of expansion before it had truly begun. What do you need from me? She finally asked. Your diplomatic skills. When we formally respond to the Council, we'll need to buy time without revealing our true intentions. Then, as the operation progresses, you'll manage perceptions, keeping the Council focused on our visible compliance while the real work happens elsewhere. Katie nodded slowly. Diplomatic misdirection. Exactly. Jack's features softened slightly. I know this goes against your training to foster interspecies cooperation, but sometimes the best cooperation comes after establishing mutual respect. And we'll earn that respect by essentially going rogue. Despite her reservations, Katie found herself intrigued by the boldness of the plan. By demonstrating that humanity won't be contained, Jack corrected. The Council believes they're dealing with precocious children who need boundaries. We need to show them they're dealing with equals who deserve a voice in shaping the galaxy's future. 3 days later, the Earth delegation returned to the Council chambers. The mood was tense as Chancellor Zephyr called the session to order. Representatives of Earth, we await your response to Resolution 7291. Jack stepped forward, his posture formal but relaxed. Chancellor, esteemed councilors, after careful consideration, Earth acknowledges the Council's concerns regarding the pace of human expansion. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. The councilors exchanged glances. They had clearly expected resistance. In the spirit of cooperation, Jack continued smoothly. We will adjust our activities accordingly. Earth formally requests a transition period of 1 standard year to implement the necessary changes to our colonial operations. Chancellor Zephyr's skin lightened to a pleased azure. This is a most reasonable response, Admiral. The Council appreciates Earth's cooperation and grants the requested transition period. Katie maintained a neutral expression, though inwardly she marveled at how easily the Council accepted Jack's apparent capitulation. Their confidence in their own authority blinded them to the possibility of deception. As they exited the chamber, Speaker Sis approached them. The Lumidian's crystalline form refracted light in patterns that indicated curiosity. Ambassador Morgan, your acceptance came more readily than anticipated. Many of us expected greater resistance from humanity. Katie offered a diplomatic smile. We recognize the value of the Council's guidance. Speaker Sis, Earth has always sought harmonious integration with the galactic community. Indeed. Perhaps we misjudged your species' adaptability. The Lumidian's light patterns shifted to something approximating satisfaction. I look forward to a more measured pace of cooperation in the coming centuries. As do we, Katie replied, maintaining her smile until the Lumidian glided away. Jack gave her an approving nod. Well done. I feel like I need a shower, Katie muttered. How long before we begin the real operation? It's already begun, Jack said quietly. The moment the Council announced their resolution, Earth Central activated the first phase protocols. By the time we return to Earth, the initial resource transfers will be underway. Within 2 weeks of their return to Earth, Katie found herself standing on the observation deck of the EAS Horizon, Earth's newest and most advanced heavy transport vessel. Below her, the blue-green jewel of humanity's homeworld slowly rotated against the black velvet of space. Helen Wright, Earth Central's Minister of Colonial Affairs, joined her at the viewport. The older woman's dark skin contrasted with her silver-white hair, styled in tight coils that framed her serious face. Beautiful, isn't it? Helen said softly. No matter how many worlds we settle, there's something about Earth that remains unique. Katie nodded. I keep thinking about all the times throughout history when humans struck out for new frontiers. The Polynesian navigators, the age of exploration, the Mars colonies. I wonder if they felt this same mixture of excitement and apprehension. Almost certainly. Helen turned from the viewport to review a holographic manifest. Though I doubt any of them had to coordinate the secret relocation of 10 million volunteers and essential industrial capacity. The scale of Operation Hidden Horizon still staggered Katie. Over the next year, a carefully selected cross-section of humanity, scientists, engineers, teachers, artists, farmers, and families, would quietly disappear from official records and make their way to the hidden worlds. Key industrial facilities would be disassembled under the guise of upgrading to Council standards and reassembled beyond the nebula barrier. The Council observers report everything proceeding normally, Katie said. They're particularly pleased with our apparent dismantling of the Jupiter shipyards. Helen's lips quirked in a smile. If only they knew we're actually doubling production capacity while moving the facilities piece by piece through the wormhole stabilizer. The experimental wormhole technology was one of humanity's most closely guarded advancements, developed in secret and never shared with the Council. It allowed for precisely targeted microjumps that could transport large structures without the energy signatures that would trigger Council monitoring systems. Admiral Harrison is personally overseeing the Ganymede facility transfer. Helen continued. The quantum computer cores will be among the last components to move. We need them to maintain the illusion of normal operations until everything else is in place. Katie's communication implant chimed softly. Excuse me, she said, activating the private channel. Jack's voice filled her mind. Katie, we have a situation. Council inspection team requesting access to Research Station Alpha on Mars. They're 2 days ahead of schedule. Stall them, she replied immediately. I'll be on the next shuttle down. She turned to Helen. Duty calls. The dance continues. Over the following months, Katie found herself engaged in the most complex diplomatic performance of her career. Every day brought new challenges as the Council, initially satisfied with humanity's apparent compliance, began to grow suspicious of subtle inconsistencies in production reports and population censuses. At a reception in the Lunar Embassy, Katie maintained a pleasant conversation with Director Kroll while discreetly monitoring the removal of the last quantum shielding components from the nearby research facility. Your species continues to surprise me, Ambassador Morgan. The Zarvith representative chittered, mandibles moving in what passed for a smile among his kind. I had not anticipated such graceful acceptance of the Council's guidance. We're pragmatists, Director, Katie replied, sipping her drink. Humans have a saying, adapt or perish. Indeed, though our surveillance indicates some unusual patterns in resource allocation and population movement between your colonies. Katie didn't miss a beat. The restructuring has required significant logistical adjustments. Some colonial industries are being consolidated, while others are being repurposed. Of course. The Zarvith's compound eyes studied her. Yet your Mars facility shows a 22% reduction in power consumption while reporting unchanged research output. Efficiency improvements, Katie explained smoothly. One benefit of the Council's restrictions has been a renewed focus on optimizing existing systems, rather than simply expanding. The conversation continued in this vein. Probing questions met with plausible explanations. All the while, Katie knew that behind her carefully crafted diplomatic screen, humanity was executing the largest covert operation in its history. By the 6-month mark, the hidden colonies had taken shape with remarkable speed. Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the bridge of the command vessel Defiance, watching as construction drones swarmed around the massive orbital shipyard, taking form above New Terra, the largest of the hidden worlds. Progress report, he requested. Commander Alexei Petrov, his operations officer, brought up a holographic display. 17 primary settlement zones established across all target worlds. Population transfer at 63% completion. Industrial capacity at 47%. Research facilities at 71%. And the defense grid? The Sentinel system is operational at 30% capacity. Full deployment expected within 45 days. Jack nodded, satisfaction evident in his eyes. The Sentinel Defense Network represented another technology humanity had developed, but never revealed to the Council. A system of automated platforms capable of generating overlapping quantum disruption fields that could disable any known drive system. Sir, Petrov said hesitantly, there's something you should see. The display shifted to show a strange anomaly at the edge of the nebula barrier. We detected this yesterday. It appears to be a Council long-range probe, but its configuration is unusual. Jack studied the readings. They're getting suspicious. Increased security protocols. All ships passing through the barrier must use the full stealth package. No exceptions. As the operation continued, the hidden colonies flourished with the energy of pioneers throughout human history. Cities rose from carefully terraformed landscapes. Research facilities hummed with activity, freed from Council oversight, and shipyards produced vessels incorporating technologies that would have scandalized the conservative Council scientists. Dr. Malcolm Clark, head of the Advanced Propulsion Laboratory on New Terra, presented his latest findings to Jack with barely contained excitement. The gravitational inversion drive works. Admiral, we've achieved translocation speeds 50 times beyond Council standard metrics without entering conventional hyperspace. Jack examined the test data. And detection profile? Virtually none. The drive creates a localized pocket of altered spacetime that simply steps sideways between normal space coordinates. No radiation signature, no subspace ripples. Mass limitations? Currently scaled for vessels up to cruiser class. But the principles should apply to larger ships with sufficient power generation. Jack clasped the scientist's shoulder. Outstanding work. Dr. Clark, begin integration into the Independence-class vessels immediately. Meanwhile, back in council space, the illusion of compliance was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Katie found herself engaged in ever more complex diplomatic acrobatics as discrepancies became impossible to hide completely. During a tense meeting with Chancellor Zephyr aboard the Council flagship Eternal Harmony, Katie weathered a storm of increasingly pointed questions. Population reports from your Proxima Centauri colony show a decrease of nearly 30%. Ambassador Morgan, Zephyr stated, skin darkening to a suspicious indigo. Yet no corresponding increase appears in other colonial registries. A statistical anomaly. Chancellor, Katie replied. The new census methodology recommended by council advisors counts only permanent residents. Many of our citizens have shifted to transient status as we restructure our economic systems. Zephyr's four-fingered hand tapped a rhythm of skepticism on the conference table. And the unusual movement of industrial equipment from your Saturn orbital facilities? Obsolete systems being decommissioned as required by Resolution 7291's technology supervision protocols. Yet your production of essential materials has not decreased proportionally. Katie offered a carefully measured smile. As I've mentioned in previous sessions, efficiency optimization has become our new focus. The dance continued for months, but Katie knew they were running out of time. The council's questions grew more pointed, their inspection requests more frequent, their surveillance more thorough. She sent encrypted warnings to Jack, who accelerated the timetable for the operation's final phase. 2 years after the council had imposed its restrictions, the hidden colonies had achieved a state of self-sufficiency that exceeded even the most optimistic projections. 11 million humans now lived beyond the council's knowledge or reach, with infrastructure and technology advancing at a pace that would have horrified the conservative councilors. Jack stood in the command center beneath New Terra's capital city, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of all 17 hidden worlds. Beside him, Helen Wright reviewed the final preparations. The last critical personnel and equipment have been extracted from council space, she reported. Our visible colonies now operate at minimal capacity, enough to maintain appearances, but not enough to sustain themselves indefinitely. And Earth? Operating normally, though with subtle reductions in key sectors. The Council believes the changes reflect our compliance with their restrictions. Jack nodded. Then it's time for the next phase. Activate Protocol Revelation. Throughout the hidden colonies, preparations that had been years in the making now accelerated toward their conclusion. Shipyards worked at maximum capacity. Defense systems came fully online, and communication networks prepared for the moment when humanity would reveal its true position to the galaxy. In council space, the first indications that something unprecedented was occurring came when automated facilities on the outer human colonies began systematic shutdown procedures. Maintenance drones retracted into storage bays, atmospheric processors powered down to minimal life support levels, and computer systems initiated secure deletion protocols. On the Proxima Centauri colony, Council observer Trelvex reported with growing alarm as the human population seemingly vanished overnight. Where a thriving settlement of 300,000 had stood, only a skeleton crew of caretakers remained, offering polite but uninformative responses to his increasingly frantic questions. Similar reports flooded in from across human space. Council ships dispatched to investigate found ghost colonies, functioning infrastructure but virtually depopulated. The humans who remained spoke of reassignment and restructuring, using the very terminology the Council itself had mandated in Resolution 7291. Chancellor Zephyr convened an emergency session of the High Council. The chamber, normally a model of serene order, buzzed with agitated conversations as representatives from across the galaxy demanded explanations. "Where have they gone?" Speaker Sis asked, her crystalline form pulsating with patterns of distress. An entire species cannot simply disappear. Yet, that appears to be precisely what they have done, Director Kroll replied, mandibles clicking nervously. Our latest census shows human population in council space has decreased by 83%. Chancellor Zephyr turned to Katie, who had been summoned to explain the situation. Ambassador Morgan, the council requires an immediate explanation for these developments. Katie stood before them, outwardly composed though her heart raced. This was the moment Jack had prepared her for, the pivot point when deception would give way to revelation. "Chancellor, esteemed counselors," she began, her voice steady. "Humanity has indeed undertaken significant changes in response to Resolution 7291. As required, we have limited our expansion within council space. As for our citizens, they have simply relocated to accommodate the new reality the council has established." "Relocated where?" Zephyr demanded. "No mass migrations have been detected. No new worlds have been settled within council territories." Katie allowed herself a small smile. "The resolution restricted our activities within council space, Chancellor. It made no provisions regarding regions beyond your jurisdiction." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The implications of her statement rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. "You claim to have established colonies beyond council space?" Director Kroll finally asked. "Impossible. The uncharted regions are hostile to life. Radiation zones, cosmic storm belts, gravitational anomalies." "Obstacles can be overcome," Katie replied simply. "Humanity has always excelled at finding paths where others see only barriers." Chancellor Zephyr's skin darkened to a deep, angry purple. "This action violates the spirit of our agreement. The Council will not recognize any settlements established without proper oversight and approval." "We are not seeking recognition, Chancellor." Katie's tone remained respectful but firm. "Merely informing you of the choices we have made in response to the Council's restrictions." Before Zephyr could respond, the chamber's central holographic projector activated without authorization. The image of Admiral Jack Harrison appeared, standing on the bridge of an unfamiliar vessel. "Greetings, Chancellor Zephyr, members of the Galactic Council. I am Admiral Harrison of the Earth Independence Fleet." Guards moved toward the projection controls, but their access was somehow blocked. The Council's vaunted security systems had been bypassed with apparent ease. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Zephyr demanded. "Not an intrusion, Chancellor. An introduction." Jack's image expanded to show the vessel around him, a massive ship of unfamiliar design. Its lines sleeker and more advanced than any human craft the Council had previously observed. "For 2 decades, humanity sought partnership with the Council," Jack continued. "We shared our discoveries, respected your protocols, and believed in the promise of a united galaxy. When you responded by imposing restrictions that would have confined our potential for centuries, we were forced to reconsider our position." The projection shifted to show a vast starscape beyond the nebula barrier. There, illuminated against the darkness, floated 17 worlds surrounded by orbital structures that dwarfed anything humanity had previously constructed in Council space. "The free colonies," Jack stated simply. "Home to 11 million humans and counting. Beyond Council space. Beyond Council restrictions. Beyond Council control." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. Security personnel scrambled uselessly to terminate the transmission, and the High Councilors conferred in agitated whispers. Chancellor Zephyr finally raised a hand for silence. "This demonstration changes nothing. Admiral Harrison, unregistered colonies have no standing in galactic affairs. No trade rights, no diplomatic recognition, no protection under Council law. We are not seeking standing within your system, Chancellor." Jack's expression remained calm. "The free colonies exist outside that framework. We will chart our own course while maintaining peaceful relations with all who wish to engage with us as equals." The projection shifted again, showing massive shipyards producing vessels of increasingly advanced design. Research facilities pulsed with energy as new technologies took form. Cities spread across carefully terraformed landscapes, their architecture a bold blend of human tradition and innovative new forms. In just 2 years, freed from artificial constraints, we have achieved advances that would have taken decades under Council oversight. Jack explained. Our invitation remains open to any species who wishes to collaborate on the basis of mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. Director Krall leaned forward, compound eyes fixed on the projection. These achievements, if genuine, would indicate technological progress far beyond what your species reported to the Council. We reported everything required under our membership covenant, Katie interjected. The Council chose to view our potential as a threat, rather than an asset. We chose to develop that potential elsewhere. The implications settled over the Assembly like a heavy shroud. Humanity had not merely escaped the Council's restrictions. They had flourished beyond them, building a parallel civilization that operated on fundamentally different principles. Chancellor Zephyr's voice, when it finally came, carried a note of warning. The Council cannot permit the establishment of competing power structures within the galaxy. It threatens the stability we have maintained for 12,000 years. Jack's expression hardened slightly. With respect, Chancellor, you mistake our intentions. We seek neither conflict nor competition. We simply refuse to be constrained. The galaxy is vast enough for many approaches to civilization to coexist. And if the Council does not accept this arrangement, Zephyr asked, then we will continue on our separate paths. But know this, the free colonies will defend their independence with all necessary force. As if to emphasize this point, the projection expanded to reveal a defensive perimeter around the free colonies. Hundreds of ships and automated platforms incorporating technologies the Council had never seen before. 5 years passed. The relationship between the Council and the free colonies existed in a state of uneasy detente. Formal diplomatic relations had not been established. Yet unofficial exchanges occurred with increasing frequency as curiosity overcame institutional resistance. In the Zephyrian system, at the edge of Council space, the mining corporation Stellar Extraction Technologies had established massive operations that systematically depleted the resources of a young civilization's home system. The Zephyrians, not yet capable of interstellar travel, watched helplessly as their future was literally carved away by Council-authorized extractors. Under Council law, the Zephyrians had no recourse. As a pre-FTL civilization, they held no standing to file grievances. The extraction was technically legal. The mining operations maintained the required buffer zone around the inhabited planet. But the long-term consequences for the young species would be devastating. The situation changed dramatically when a fleet of ships appeared at the system's edge. Led by the massive flagship Independence, the vessels moved into position around the primary extraction facility with precision that spoke of advanced navigational systems. Admiral Kane Brooks, a stern-faced woman who had been among the first to volunteer for the free colonies, opened communications with the facility. Attention Stellar Extraction personnel. This is Admiral Brooks of the Free Colonies Fleet. Your operations in this system have been determined to constitute an ethical violation against the developmental rights of the Zephyrian civilization. The facility manager, a Lumidian named Prism Sect, responded with indignation. This operation is fully sanctioned by Council resource allocation protocols. You have no authority here. We claim no authority over Council space, Brooks replied evenly. We merely offer a choice. Cease operations and withdraw your equipment within 30 standard days. Or, we will disable your facilities and remove them ourselves. This is outrageous. The Council is welcome to present its perspective at a neutral arbitration. Brooks interrupted. Meanwhile, our weapon systems are locked on your primary extraction nodes. You have 30 days. When news of the confrontation reached the council chambers, the reaction was immediate and vehement. Chancellor Zephyr convened an emergency session, summoning representatives from across the galaxy. This direct interference in council-sanctioned activities cannot stand, the Chancellor declared, skin shifting through angry patterns of deep purple and crimson. The humans have crossed from establishing their separate existence to actively challenging council authority. Katie Morgan, who remained Earth's official ambassador despite spending much of her time in the free colonies, stood to address the assembly. The free colonies acted to protect a developing civilization from exploitation, she stated calmly. The Zephyrians would never have developed interstellar flight in time to preserve the resources of their outer system. By the time they reached the Council's membership threshold, nothing would remain for them to claim. The buffer protocols were maintained. Director Krall objected. No direct interference with their homeworld occurred. Yet their future was being systematically eliminated, Katie countered. This exemplifies the fundamental difference in our approaches. The Council protects the letter of its laws while often neglecting their spirit. The debate raged for days. Council warships were dispatched to the Zephyrian system, only to find the human fleet had established a defensive perimeter that incorporated technologies the Council's sensors could barely comprehend. When the Council vessels attempted to approach the extraction facility, they discovered their drive systems mysteriously failing, leaving them drifting in space until emergency systems engaged. No weapons were fired. No direct confrontation occurred. Yet the message was unmistakable. The free colonies possessed technological capabilities that could neutralize Council forces without violence. After tense negotiations, a compromise was reached. The extraction operations would be scaled back by 80%. With the remaining activities focused on regions the Zephyrians would not require for at least 5 centuries. Meanwhile, a portion of the extracted resources would be placed in trust for the young civilization's future needs. The incident marked a turning point. Throughout Council space, member species began to whisper about the humans' approach. Young civilizations, long accustomed to accepting the Council's hierarchical structure without question, now looked to the free colonies as an alternative model. In the Council chambers, Councillor Vex of the energy-based Phi Collective raised an uncomfortable question during a closed session. Perhaps we should consider whether our response to human expansion was miscalculated, the shimmering entity suggested, its voice resonating through the translator fields. In attempting to contain their growth, we may have inadvertently created a more significant challenge to the established order. Are you suggesting we were wrong to impose the resolution? Chancellor Zephyr asked sharply. I am suggesting that any system that cannot accommodate diversity of approach contains the seeds of its own limitation, Vex replied diplomatically. For 12 millennia, the Council has equated stability with uniformity. The humans have demonstrated an alternative path. A dangerous path, Director Krall interjected. Unregulated development leads to chaos. Does it? Speaker Sis asked, her crystalline form pulsing thoughtfully. The free colonies have established 17 thriving worlds without conflict. Their technological advancement continues at an unprecedented rate. Yet they have used their capabilities for defense rather than aggression. The conversation revealed deepening divisions within the Council itself. Younger member species increasingly questioned the rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic governance for millennia, while the founding species struggled to maintain the system they had created. Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the observation deck of New Terra's Orbital Administrative Center, gazing at the planet below. The settlement that had begun as a collection of prefabricated structures now sprawled across the terraformed landscape, a gleaming metropolis surrounded by agricultural regions and natural preserves designed to maintain ecological balance. Katie Morgan joined him, having just returned from her latest diplomatic mission to Council space. They're beginning to understand, she said without preamble. Not the High Council yet. They're too entrenched in their ways. But the younger member species are asking questions the founders can't easily answer. Jack nodded. And Earth? Maintaining its official council membership while quietly strengthening ties with the free colonies. Katie smiled slightly. President Chen has become quite skilled at navigating between the two systems. And the Zephyrian situation? Stabilized, for now. The council saving face by claiming they adjusted the extraction protocols out of benevolence, rather than admitting they couldn't match our technology. Jack turned from the viewport to face her. We never wanted conflict, Katie. Just the freedom to determine our own path. I know. And increasingly, others are recognizing the value of that approach. She activated a holographic display showing diplomatic requests from across the galaxy. 17 species have formally requested observer status with the free colonies. 5 have indicated interest in establishing their own settlements beyond council space, with our technical assistance. And the council's response? Officially, they condemn any unauthorized expansion. Unofficially, they're beginning to recognize they can't prevent it. Below them, a new vessel rose from the planetary shipyards, the Explorer, the first of a class designed specifically for deep space exploration beyond even the free colony's current reach. Its mission: to seek out new civilizations and offer them direct contact, unfiltered by council protocols that typically kept developing species isolated until they reached arbitrary technological thresholds. Jack watched the ship's graceful ascent with satisfaction. Inform the council that we're extending an open invitation. Any species that wishes to observe or participate in our approach is welcome, not as subordinates to be guided, but as equals with perspectives to contribute. Even the founding species? Especially them. They have much to teach us, if they can move beyond seeing us as upstarts to be controlled. Katie studied him with newfound appreciation. The military man she had once thought too rigid had revealed himself as a visionary with a remarkably nuanced understanding of interspecies relations. You never intended this to be a permanent separation, she realized. This was always about forcing a recalibration of the relationship. Jack smiled slightly. Humanity thrives on connection. Katie, isolation has never been our goal, but connections must be built on mutual respect, not paternalistic oversight. In the years that followed, the galaxy watched as a new paradigm emerged. The free colonies continued to expand and develop, their technological advancement accelerating without the artificial constraints the Council had attempted to impose. Yet they remained true to their founding principle: independence without isolation. A new structure took shape in neutral space between Council territory and the free colonies, the new Round Table, a meeting place where representatives from both systems could gather as equals. Unlike the hierarchical arrangement of the Council chambers, the table was precisely what its name suggested: a circular forum where no position held precedence over another. Many Council species remained wary, preferring the familiar structures they had known for millennia. But an increasing number sent observers to the table, and some began establishing their own settlements beyond Council space, using the technological assistance the free colonies freely offered. The Council itself gradually evolved in response to this new reality. Chancellor Zephyr, after initial resistance, recognized that adaptation was preferable to irrelevance. Reforms began, tentative at first, then more substantial as younger member species pressed for change. In the Council chambers, the seat once assigned to Earth remained conspicuously empty, not abandoned, but seldom used as humanity focused its energies elsewhere. Yet the empty chair served as a constant reminder of possibilities beyond the established order. The galaxy watches, Katie remarked to Jack as they observed the latest gathering at the new Round Table, where representatives from 37 species, both council members and independent civilizations, engaged in open dialogue. And what does it see? Jack asked. A future not defined by structures built 12,000 years ago, but continually reimagined by those who will live in it. Katie smiled. A future where leaving the table doesn't mean ending the conversation, just changing its terms. Jack nodded, satisfaction evident in his eyes. That's all we ever wanted. Not to abandon the galaxy, but to help it see beyond its self-imposed limits. Beyond the table, the stars shone with possibility. Exploration vessels from both the free colonies and progressive council worlds ventured into regions long deemed too distant or dangerous. New civilizations were contacted with respect rather than patronizing oversight. Technologies developed not through carefully regulated increments, but through bold innovation and open exchange. The galaxy watched, sometimes with apprehension, sometimes with fascination, increasingly with hope, as humanity demonstrated that abandoning the old table had never been about isolation. It had been about creating space for something new to emerge, something that honored ancient wisdom while embracing the essential truth that had driven human advancement throughout history. The greatest journeys begin when someone has the courage to leave familiar shores behind. In the council chambers, the empty human seat remained, not a symbol of absence but an open invitation, not abandoned, but transformed into a bridge between what had been and what might yet become. And the galaxy watched and learned and grew,